Okay. And then let me share the staff report. So basically the stuff that was outlined in the planning grant, I see as I see two parallel paths going, again, with the idea that we are aiming for the $1 million incentives grant, which is kind of the eye on the prize, which would be due next fall. So as we start talking about budgeting for next year, and I said the same thing to the city council, remember that $1 million ask would have a 20% match price tag to it. So if the county and the city were to split that in half, that'd be 100,000 for each municipality. There are other ways, though. That's like the cold hard cash match. There are other ways to realize match in these grants, but that would be, I think as the county and the city really start to focus in on getting a housing project built, obviously there's always, when you write these grants, just as it was for this grant, the county had to pass a resolution saying we have a match. You will be expected that when we write that application for the next one, that will be there too. So there is that piece. But the goal here is that, unfortunately, I was pretty bummed, but this is reality. DOLA said that doing this site analysis piece of the puzzle would be considered pre-development costs and is actually part of the next grant. My issue with that is that to get to $1 million ask, I would love to have, and this is what this process is trying to get to really know a solid idea of what the potential site that we're looking for the grant dollars for, what the actual costs are. I think it would be really hard. I don't understand from a DOLA perspective. I think it'd be really hard to be competitive in that grant, because I know it's going to be a very competitive grant, to not have a really set idea of exactly how you would spend $1 million, especially when we talk about water or wastewater infrastructure, or even an environmental cleanup of the site. It'd be really important to have some pretty well budgeted numbers, and that's what this process is aiming to do. So again, two processes going on. One, for the DOLA grant, they want us to have those qualified strategies, which were in that planning grant, the adoption, the IGAs, everything. And so I see myself really shepherding that process through. Unfortunately, I'm just looking at hours. I don't think it's feasible for me to be doing this additional process, which I think we need to bring on architecture and engineering services for me to really run that process, just given the amount of time that I'm going to be spending on the other things. But I will say that on behalf of the county, I am more than willing to work with Ann on preparing an RFQ and doing all the administrative stuff to make sure that this process is delivered on time and on schedule. So I would see myself as more of being there for the county to ensure that this process it plays out and that we get the end product that we need by the end of July, to ensure that we're in position to apply for the DOLA grant. But basically what this is looking at is the creation of looking at 3 sites, up to 3 sites. I know we have done through the Masters MEP program, they have done some initial site design stuff. And that's certainly, if one of those 3 sites that emerges at the top that work has already been done on, that will certainly help the architectural services and potentially reduce those fees. So when they do concept, but the idea is basically between now and the end of this week, believe it or not, I am hoping to get up there to meet with Bryce and Ann, and we are looking at this creating basically 2 levels of committees for this process. One is the administrative committee, which would be basically the staff, and then the land advisory committee, which is actually the group that would have the decision-making authority before we step into a public process. So basically the administrative committee is myself and Bryce, and potentially Lake County Economic Development. I know Marla has expressed interest in being part of that group because she's having conversations with different developers. And then the architect and engineer, once they're selected, would also be considered in this administrative staff. But really, this group is responsible for bringing and gathering all the information for the land advisory committee to make recommendations. And the biggest issue being that I know, having been in a similar community like Crested Butte, that I have basically to the next snowstorm to get out there and really put eyes on all of these sites and document them before they're under 10 feet of snow when this process is playing out, which is January through May. So to make sure that the architects and engineers have everything they would possibly need to do the process. And so we don't have to wait 6 months for the snow to melt to do this. And so that would be the kind of between now and the end of the year site analysis, gathering all the information and working towards. Then what our goal would be is to, one, get an RFQ out if we elect to go forward with this, which would be to hire an architect and engineer. And then two, to create this land advisory committee to look at the site analysis to direct that architect and engineer on what 3 sites we'd be looking at. We're looking at one county commissioner, and if you would like additional commissioners, let us know. Mayor Labby was appointed by the city council already for this process as we move forward with the RFQ selection. We would probably ask for a housing coalition member or Build a Generation. They've been a huge part of this process. And then depending on whether or not we were to say that we wanted to look at one of the 3 sites being a school district, hospital district. I know CMC has a piece of property. If one of those pieces of property is selected, certainly want representation from them. I know the Climax mine parcel is also one that has always been brought up in conversations. And then the last 2 are the water and sand district, and having representation from their boards, because certainly water and sewer is a major utility expense moving forward. So the idea would be that the administrative committee brings to the land advisory committee a list of sites, goes through the pros and cons, and that the land advisory committee basically blesses the 3 sites moving forward, and then helps shepherd the public process, which would be the next step. And so then the next step to all of this would be that the architect would hold basically 2 community charrettes, and they would do some very high level concept designs with the idea of filtering out the density and the community tolerance for density on a site, as well as looking at entitlements that might, or any kind of zoning hurdles. So are there setback issues, are there density issues, things like that we would need to address ahead of any kind of RFQ application, which is also part of the sidebar thing that is in the planning budget, which if an entitlement issue came up in zoning, we do have money in the planning budget to do code amendments, right? So that is an eligible planning expense. And so I would be paying attention during that process. And that's kind of where SCED is sitting, is on the sidelines, seeing what comes out of this that would match the planning grant. And by the end of, basically, the hope would be that the concepts are basically into a final form where the engineers can come in May and June, in early June, when the snow is melted, and do final pro formas for infrastructure costs, roads, etc., for what the total horizontal or broccoli costs, I call them, would be for that site. And that's where we would get a pro forma. And then we would have, of these 3 sites, we would know what are our horizontal costs that would actually be eligible under the DULA grant. And we would basically be able to say by the end of July, okay, this is the site that makes the most sense for the incentive grant. Not to mention, you would also know, and my hope would be that while there's a project under the incentive grant, maybe a couple other projects rise to the top that, where the land donation by the county for a LIHTC project, potentially, for instance, might make sense because there's other financing options. And again, I anticipate that one site might be a for sale product, one site might be a complete rental project like a LIHTC, and then you might have another site that's, for instance, the Climax parcel is a larger site that's 10 acres, something like of that size, that you would have to start to then fuss out what is the actual scope, the full kind of program was what we call it, of that site, or how many for sale units would be there, how many rental projects would be in that parcel, and really to build out that pro forma for something like that, and potentially even attract a private public partnership development strategy on that third site. Not saying that that's how it all breaks down. They could all be rentals. They could all be for sale. But just as a kind of hypothetical, how they might break out. So the budget that I'm looking at is somewhere in the ballpark of 40 to 50,000. That range, the reason for the range is really architectural services. You can see in there that architectural services is depending, I'm anticipating it's going to be a little bit more than engineering, but I think we should be in the $15,000 to $20,000 ballpark. Engineering services, the high level budget that I got from calling around was 5,000 per site, which is 15,000 total. I do think, unfortunately, as much as I would love to be the facilitator of this process, I do see looking ahead and being realistic with my time and making sure that I'm getting done the things that need to be going on in that second path, that we probably do need to bring in a separate facilitator that will be in front at those meetings and trying to cover those making sure that those community charrettes are happening. And also finally, the facilitator will be responsible for taking the work of the engineer and architect and putting it in a final report for the county. I did throw in, $5,000 for meeting costs. I don't know what's typically customary as if you guys do pizza for these charrettes or something like that. But those costs would be potentially in there. So what we were looking at potentially is basically a $20,000 budget line item from the city and a $20,000 match from the county. I don't want to speak for the Economic Development Corporation, but there was also some discussions about, and also I don't want to speak for Christie, but there's been some discussions about whether or not they would do a potential ask to the Climax Community Foundation for 5,000, and those two organizations potentially partnering with a small grant match for the last 10,000. But that's what I'm anticipating for this piece of the project to go forward. So I'll stop there, and then we can talk about November and December after this. But any questions on this piece?
No, I don't think so, Michael. At least not yet on our end here. But and just to clarify, all of this work is included and would then be going into the application. And this 40 to 50,000 budget is inclusive really of the majority of what we'll be focusing on over the next several months, correct?
So this is a separate, this is not in the planning grant. So this is absent the planning grant. So this was the cost that this is the piece of the project that we initially wanted to include in the planning grant that DOLA wouldn't allow. So this is a separate expense. And to answer your question, I think there's, as far as public process and community involvement moving forward, I think there's probably 3 major public components that'll be going on in parallel. 1 is this process, 2 are the community guidelines, and 3 is the discussions around the housing director, housing authority, and development strategies.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, thank you.
No problem. And again, SCED, I see SCED, obviously we will be ensuring that this process is playing out the way that the architect and the engineer and the facilitator know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. So basically working with Ann to make sure that that this contract is being executed and is going to be done on time. But I hope to shepherd this off. And then again, my time being spent on really focusing in on more of those administrative housing things that need to be set up so that your new housing director has a soft landing, as well as any code amendments that are necessary to get this qualified strategies done.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
So then,
No.
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
And then I guess I have 2 other real quick things as far as immediate next steps to talk about the commissioners with. One, there's, coming up in November, we've been seeing a lot of interest from LIHTC developers, And if there's an interest from the commissioners, I'd be happy to do a very brief 10-minute presentation at your next meeting to talk about responsibilities of like what is LIHTC, give you a real high level of what that is. And then also talk about there's kind of two different paths that developers will take. There's one where they could potentially use a public parcel that is controlled by the county, or there's the path of them coming in and doing a development on a private side. Regardless of what path those developers take, there's basically rules for the city and the county in that. I know you guys have gotten letters or requests for letters of support. So I would be happy to give you a very high level, 100,000 foot level. Here's LIHTC, and here are some things to be thinking about as commissioners of, where because you're gonna, if it's a private development in the county, there's some, your quasi judicial process because you're an approving body. What does that mean, and how does that affect your letter of support, right? Those types of things. So I'm happy on that piece, and then and I'll stop there, and then I have one other next step idea too that I wanted to run through.
I think that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can emphasize, I think, how important that is, because we are getting lots of interest. And so I also think that we're positioned, I think everyone thinks we're positioned very well for a LIHTC project in Lake County, so Leadville, Lake County. So I think that would be tremendously beneficial.
Great. Cool.
I just wanted to add, I just wonder if we wanted to try to find a time when, the mayor or city council or city staff could attend as well. Just given it.
And I can make myself available. So yes, I'd be happy to do that, Jeff. If there's a different time.
The next planning commission meeting has a joint opportunity with the city that we've already carved out, but that's pretty immediate. That'd be a week from today. So that's the 25th. I don't know if that's too soon for you, Michael, but
yeah, unfortunately I'm in Trinidad, and I'm supposed to be in Trinidad and Lamar that day. So that would be a little too short notice. Sorry.
I can work on that though, of trying to see if we can find a good time to invite the city into that discussion. So I'll work on that and see what we can put together.
Okay. And I think on this one, the other question I have for the commissioners is, I think you're being approached by multiple developers, and the staff is as well. The other piece of the puzzle that I think will come out of this discussion is whether or not you would want to actually do a kind of, I wouldn't call it a formal process, but an informal process where you would invite the LIHTC community to come and present their concepts, because LIHTC is a very competitive process. And once that project award has been given, for instance, Lake County won't see likely not see, I don't want to talk for Shaffa, but the kind of unwritten rule is another 5 years before they would be kind of putting you in consideration again for LIHTC. And so there's some pros and cons of having the private sector completely do it. And there's some pros and cons that taking it on through the public sector. But I also think that, if you are going to do a letter of support, would you want to kind of create an informal process in which you would invite like the sorry, I'm going to say their name wrong, LDG, was it? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Those developers of the world to come into the room and do an informal presentation of their different projects, and then basically have the city and county jointly agree on writing a letter of support in one direction or another, especially if it's in the private side. When you do a public sector project, there are a lot of rules and regs that you have to follow because of sunshine laws, and you would actually have to do a formal RFQ. So anyways, I can get into all of that and kind of give you some just very high level guidance. I will tell you this, the one thing I will is my biggest disclaimer is I am not a LIHTC guy. I did one LIHTC project. I'm bald because of it. I never wanted to do another one. So I just, so I'm not, like your LIHTC expert, but I can definitely give you from the staff perspective and the elected official perspective, things to be thinking about and how to structure that conversation so that you have a high level heads up coming into it.
That sounds fantastic, Michael, and that's a great point. I hadn't really considered that on vetting private interests and really, project readiness or meeting criteria and really Lake County benefit as far as that LIHTC engagement and that potential. So I saw heads nodding on our end here. I think that would be helpful to understand how to best go about that. And I suspect maybe it's really just the conversations that maybe have been had with Marla, you, Michael, Ann, and Paul at Land Use on potential interests in the community. But I also wonder if it's not worth some publication to solicit or flag or promote that as the board's
Sure.
intention.
Yeah, and let's have that conversation at the next meeting about how to go about that, because the LIHTC, if you're gonna have a private developer coming into LIHTC, their application's due in February. So I can talk about when those deadlines are gonna be coming up, and that's why there's a lot of interest right now. And so I think we could probably do it pretty quick, as far as what you just described, Sarah. And I don't think, like I said, I don't think it needs to be a terribly formal process, but I think there is, as an elected official, I can appreciate that you would at least want the 100,000-foot view of the LIHTC world before you start writing letters of support. And that would be really helpful. And if I was in your shoes. So
Agreed. Yes, I think
All right.
we agree. Thank you.
the only other piece of the puzzle that I would like some direction on for the next few months is the Housing Authority IGA and the housing director. And if there's any need for SCED involvement, there is some money again in the planning grant to assist with some of the documents that will be used by that person. But I guess more importantly, I guess my question is around, is there any administrative tasks that I can do to assist with the actual IGA or job description or anything like that?
Just this morning, I got a first draft of the city county IGA on this from the city, so I can circulate that for review. So I think, just to answer your question, just taking an extra pair of eyes on that. So I'll get that out as soon as I can after this meeting.
Great. And I'll be up there, Jeff, on Wednesday, so and I can snag that from you if you can get a copy or a Word document, or you can send it off to myself. Be happy to put eyes on that. Okay. All right.
So I think we had discussed this a little bit as far as like getting into and committing to some investment in that work based on the response that we got from DOLA. As far as the first big question or overview you gave us with the parallel supporting activities in that some of the entitlement work and the density issues and conversations and permitting. I suspect is the board still in agreement of dedicating 20 grand for that piece in order to be that much further ahead and competitive in the DOLA application next year. I just want to make sure that we're giving you, Michael, what you and Ann staff direction and the confidence that to continue.
Yeah, and I think we
And
can, as one commissioner, I think we can fine tune that in our kind of budget process through the rest of this year. We had some kind of placeholders for having director contribution, etc. So I think this would just have to fit in there.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
And it would be that 20,000 for that process would be a 2022 budget item.
Mhm.
So the money that we would spend between now and then would be the more of the administrative stuff to get the RFQ out so that we can start at the first of the year.
Yep.
Okay.
That works.
Very good. Okay.
All right.
I think you have a thumbs up from us on that.
Yep.
All right, and then I think, yes, let's pencil you in and have you as an agenda item to discuss the high level LIHTC and potentially the MOU on the housing director if we are prepared to consider that as well on the 18th. And is there anything else that you guys might need from us right now?
No, and I will also, just in the background, be putting together the RFQ for the charrette process. So,
Okay.
and do we normally need to bring that, would that be, so the way I have it structured, just this for clarification approval of, do I need to bring that to the commissioners before we release it? Or do we want to have them review the responses? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know. I guess typically this is a little bit, we typically do run it through, but I think since we are engaging with you to lead that process, it might look a little bit different. But I mean, if you have that to share and would just like a review, we can certainly do that.
And the land advisory committee would be the group that would be approving the draft before we released it. So, but if the commissioners also want to see it, then we can do that too.
Sure.
Because there is a commissioner on the land advisory committee. So,
We typically have joint hearings. Oh, sorry, your land advisory committee. Yes, okay.
I'm sorry, it's all really confusing. I know.
I'm sorry. No, I'm just, anyway. Very good. Yeah, just keep us in the loop.
Okay,
Please.
will do. All right.
Thank you,
Well,
Michael.
thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
All right. Okay, and moving on to item number 2 then. We have an MOU with the Attorney General's office for the opioid settlement. Commissioner Marcella, do you have any insight there for us?
Sure.
Okay.
Am I good?
Yeah, you're good. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So this is the MOU between the Attorney General's office and us as a local government to participate in the allocation of the opioid recoveries from the opioid settlements. And it basically lays out the regional participation, which we are in Region 5. And I have the, just a second here.
Map.
Yep, the map. Did you want to share that? Okay. So we're participating in Region 5. It aligns most closely with our judicial region. We're up there in the blue. And then there's also a local share that will come to Lake County. It's a pretty minimal amount, but we'll receive a local share as well. So this MOU allows us to participate on a regional and a local level for the opioid settlement. And so we've already started work in our region on engaging someone for technical assistance for the facilitation of receiving the funds and using the funds and distributing the funds. So this MOU just says to the Attorney General's office that we are participating in the settlement and agreeing to the terms of our region and our local percentage for the settlement.
Okay. I don't think I have any other questions for you, Commissioner Fiedler.
Yeah, no, thanks for being point person on that.
Yeah, no problem. And we'll get our stakeholder group email out hopefully by the end of the week, so we can start to convene our local stakeholder group and then take that to our region. So
Okay.
all right.
All right, and so do we have trying to pull up the
So the title of it,
title? There
did
you go.
did you want the title of it?
For opioid settlement memorandum of understanding.
So it has a bunch of additional, oh gosh, let me see.
Exhibits.
Yeah, exhibits with the escrow account for the agreements and all of those things.
Very good.
So with that, I will make a motion that we approve the Colorado opioid memorandum of understanding with the Colorado Attorney General's office.
Second.
All right, and okay, without, sorry, I was just looking through real quick.
Yeah.
All right, the allocations, trying to get a quick revisit those numbers on Eagle, Chafee, or not Chafee, Summit. Garfield. Okay. Mhm.
0.09%.
All right. Great. Yeah, I don't have any other questions for you here, and looking forward to continuing the conversations on how that work and any new or existing programming gets enhanced
Yeah.
through the resources available by the opportunity.
Awesome.
All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
I
Very good. Okay. And moving on to item number 3, we have engagement with Jamie Cipher for media and communications work. Mr. Marcella again.
Yeah, so I've been working with Jamie and Chris to get this professional services agreement out. Jamie has been able to offer his services to us to assist with some communications for COVID specific purposes, to kind of tidy up our communication and communication themes and marketing, I guess, if you will. So Jamie, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that about covers it, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sure. And Chris didn't seem to have any questions, or did you have anything to chime in with as well, Chris?
I was just going to offer that Jamie has signed off on the county standard professional services agreement form, which I emailed to y'all. He sent over a signed copy. He's going to get it completed, notarized tomorrow and drop it off for us so that we can get it over to y'all for signature after approval. But it is a standard version. The Exhibit A sets forth the scope of services that he's proposing to provide and the terms for those services. And like with Jamie, I'm happy to try and answer any questions you have on the agreement.
I have a question, and I see in the Exhibit A, the last on the list is other communication tasks as requested. I know Jamie's made a couple of comments, and I think that they're totally valid and worthwhile to look at too on some website content. And I'd be interested and wonder if included in that, unless it's quite specific and narrowed down to public health, if we or Jamie would be interested in working either with me and IT or Civic Plus, and also kind of reviewing that public facing content on the county website.
I personally wouldn't have any issue with that. I think it would be up to Jamie as to if he had the capacity to assist with that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a matter of how much work there is. And, I kind of budgeted this 10 hours specifically for COVID and public health type stuff, but depending on the scope of work, perhaps it could be included. Perhaps the scope of work could just be expanded to include more website stuff.
Okay, so
sorry, I was just going to offer that the way the agreement and the scope of work, the Exhibit A is drafted, it does have some flexibility in there. So it is just the number of hours is approximated in there, and the reference to like editing existing information is somewhat open-ended too. So that anticipating that y'all might have some other areas you could use as a support in.
okay, so we can once there's a better handle on public health and COVID specific related, we can just see how that might evolve with the work that Jamie's taken on. Does that sound fair, Jamie?
It does, yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Great.
So I will make a motion that we approve the agreement with Jamie Seeker for media and communication purposes.
I'll second.
Okay, if there's no further discussion,
No.
all those in favor? Aye.
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 Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and on to 4. Item number 4, we have consideration of cost share in partnership with Central Colorado Conservancy for Lake County Conservation District related staffing to design and implement programs and outreach efforts through that staff position. Combining, this is based on, this was presented to the board by Central Colorado Conservancy. It is how they operate and structure similar resources down in Chaffee, specifically related to their conservation district. The staff person would be a CCC staff person and would support the activities of the conservation district. And I know, I'm not sure if Laura or Tim, that might be you on LG Think. But I did invite the acting manager of the conservation district to chat, and it's been something that's been brought up there at their meetings as well. And I think that we all see this opportunity as a better way to utilize and leverage resources that are available to the conservation district that are currently underutilized. So that budget, I do have the budget, the partnering budget currently for 2022 looks like 36,000 approximately. And I did speak with Adam Bay with the Central Colorado Conservancy, and the way that they have their staffing in Chaffee currently is a combination of funding from NRCS, GOCO, and another entity that I'm forgetting that is not the county. So it is potential, there is potential that once we catalyze this through the year commitment of the county's contribution, that contribution may not sustain, and there are other ways that staffing could be paid for. Any questions or comments? I mean, I'm super excited about it. I don't know that I need to keep talking about it, but we have discussed a number of times in some work sessions, and but I guess I'll see if you guys have any other clarifying kind of thoughts or
No, I don't
questions.
think so. Just as an exciting opportunity really, to focus more on conservation.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, I think the county contribution leverages multiples of that in work that's going to come into the county, and I think to provide more resources and support for the conservation district is great. You know,
Yeah.
to help landowners, you know, think through conservation. Will be good and supports some of the goals of protecting open space in the county. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. I think, yeah, and they put on events too, and do continued like outreach and education, and I think it'll be really great to have someone supported through an entity like CCC be able as a liaison and or contributor to our emerging kind of development conversations. Very excited. All right. I would love to entertain a motion on the partnership. Oh, or we can get into discussion. Sure. I see Laura might be joining, and that is our current conservation district manager. But I'll entertain the motion first, and we can go into further discussion and if you want to ask any questions.
Sure. I will make a motion that we
Central Colorado.
approve the cost share and partnership with Colorado Central Conservancy for Lake County Conservation District to design and implement programs and outreach for the 2022 budget year with a cost of $36,000. Yes,
I think it
oh,
was
good, right?
36. I did say approximately 36. So I think the precise amount that Adam shared with us on that budget was 36,608.
I'll
Go ahead, go ahead.
I'll second.
Okay. And so just again, as far as discussion, the exact amount proposed is 36,608 in Lake County's portion of the overall budget with staff and resource support through CCC. And I see Laura Kenyon, is that you that just joined us?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Laura.
Can you hear me?
I
Hi.
can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. Laura, we did just have a little bit of a discussion and you hopped on just as we were making our motion to support the CCC staff position. I wonder if you have any other thoughts to share with the board.
Not really, other than I think it's a really good move, especially for the county and the conservation district. So yes, I mean, I definitely think it's going to be wonderful. So.
Great. Thanks, Laura.
Mhm.
All right. If there's no further discussion
None from me,
on the
thank you.
board, thank you very much for considering this. And yeah, I think there's a lot of potential and I can let Adam know what our final vote is here, but his goal would to have someone on board January 1, pending our participation. All right, if there's no further discussion, all of those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Fantastic. Great. All right, and so we'll move on to our last item of new business, item number 5 with our CSU extension MOU consideration. This is a similar partnership and opportunity. Commissioner Fiedler has worked a lot with the CSU extension program, and if you want to kind of give us a little bit of an overview there.
Yeah, and we have Kurt in the room as well.
Hi, Kurt.
We can swivel our. So Kurt is the, I guess, maybe interim regional.
So,
Yeah.
as part of COVID, our previous regional director took a early retirement incentive. Our previous regional director took a retirement incentive, and so a couple of us took over his duties as interim regional directors. And so I've served as the Chaffee County Extension Director for 22 years. So one of the first things that I did was start supporting a 4-H club here in Lake County, the Broken Arrows 4-H club. And it's kind of been on the back of my mind ever since that we should have an extension office up here. The previous extension office unfortunately closed in 1977 due to some economic issues. And I actually got to work with the previous county director, Sue Cummings, was the previous county director here in Lake County. For the first 3 or 4 years of my career, she was working at the state 4-H office. So,
Yeah, and Kurt, correct me if I misstate or overstate things, but I think we're one of the few counties in the state that doesn't have, in-county CSU extensions. I
that's
think
correct. That's
sort of
correct.
in some ways, like the previous agenda item is an opportunity for some county funds to leverage multiples of that in terms of support. I'll say, I mean, as you can look at the MOU, there'll be a in-county advisory committee, and we have, some control over, both the skill set of the in-county agent and sort of what the, programs they work on. But I think one thing I learned in the, work sessions that you presented at before, in terms of how this works is, I always think of CSU as like direct, support for, row crop technical assistance, and it's quite a bit broader than that. It's not just 4-H either. There's, for example, there's quite a lot on educational courses on crafting, household budgets, potential work to support a lot of the amazing sort of food access and food sustainability work that's gone on through the COVID session. So I think there's quite a lot of flexibility in terms of meeting the county needs. I think one of the next steps is to meet with you and some of your colleagues in the extension service to sort of start that more concrete discussion on what the content would be and what the job description would look like.
A couple of things to add to that. I would probably be asking one of you as a county commissioner to serve on the search committee to help finalize that position description and review candidates and interview and that type of thing. I would, of course, also be asking the board to assist me with identification of who serves on the local advisory committee and officially appointing those folks.
So I think specifically the budget request, and I think, I don't know if this is like final or would need to be fine tuned, but the contribution to the agent is 14,700, and then in addition, we need to provide that person office space, support like a desk and sort of essentially, the same support we would offer any county employee, and then administrative support. And I think we talked about that being, it would not need to be a full-time administrative support, especially in the beginning phases, and we can see how things turn out.
It's been 45 years since there's been extension here in the county, so I'd be very surprised if there's enough work for a full-time administrative assistant at this point.
And I wonder if like a space in the Office of Emergency Management office or building would suffice, and perhaps we have some space to kind of finagle around, so it's not a huge effort or expense, or we're not displacing anybody.
It also doesn't have to be county space. I know Cloud City Conservation Center has offered, because of the potential,
Overlap.
Sorry, better word, synergy with their food access and sustainability work as they look for new office space, potentially, if there's a suitable space, it could be co-housed with them. I think, they would look for some support on that.
No.
Mine.
Of course, that office space is paid for by Lake County, so it's whatever is the most economical for the county.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think we have space there, and then a computer or IT needs seem like kind of the two big immediate needs. And I did wonder about that admin, since we're kind of developing what the primary position is, do we can kind of figure out what that administrative support really looks like outside of the extension program, I think.
So for example, one of my colleagues in Teller County, he shares his admin with Department of Health and Human Services. So she's in the mornings in his office, and then literally moves down like 3 doors in the same complex to the other office. And there's a little bit of overlap there, but if there was Commissioner Fiedler and I spoke a bit about, if the board needs administrative support, or if the new county manager needs administrative support, perhaps that's a shared position. I don't know what your pleasure is.
Well, I wonder, as far as the language in the MOU, there is that something we need to clarify? I'm trying to pull up.
Well, that's part of the reason I'm here today, is that if there's something there that needs clarified, I'm happy to make that fix, and then
Yeah, I think just the language says one support staff hired through the county based on funding availability. I mean, does that kind of cover our verbal conversation around figuring out how that evolved and what exactly that looks like?
Yeah, and sorry for not like sending these comments around before, just looking this over. I thought, and yeah, and that's so section 3A, you know, had thought, yes, had thought about, you know, maybe it's like up to one support staff, and also, I mean, it's not just funding availability, it's sort of, I thought, you know, and mutually agreed workload or something like that.
This would be the support staff to the CSU. staff.
Yeah, yeah,
Cause I think, cause we did talk about that being. Like it could be already a position that we have that could assist with some of those administrative supports. that
Yeah.
They might need, so we might not need to hire like another part-time or full-time person.
Yeah.
In particular.
Sure. I would just ask that they have time to be able to learn some of our systems. In particular, this person will need to know our 4-H enrollment program pretty well. And that's not an intuitive system at the very beginning. So
Okay.
they'll need some onboarding time and that type of thing. It's also important to be able to have, you know, reliable office hours, so that if someone needs to drop by and pick up a water testing kit, for example, they know that the office is open from, you know, 9 to 3 or 9 to 2, however that works. So it's
but I think if I understood to your point, Kayla, it's like this wouldn't necessarily be a new hire, but it would be a county person
Mhm.
available.
Incorporating some,
Yeah.
responsibilities.
And given, especially as you said, in the early phase, especially, you know, we don't anticipate a full FTE supporting the CSU work, that this person could split responsibilities, you know, among
Yeah.
different needs
Yeah.
in the county. And yep. So I think we can suggest some simple changes to 3A that to capture that fiscally.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess I presume, do we want to try to wordsmith that right now?
Sure,
so we
I
can
mean,
approve it?
sure.
I think, yeah, just so we can, and I don't know if you then would need, if we could approve it.
If I thought about it, I'd grab my laptop on the way up and we'd do it right now. So
I've got the Word doc pulled up. I can certainly do that and then forward that to you. I'll do it with track changes. But go for it, Jeff, if you have some language.
So in 3A, in that, it says hired through CSU, and it currently says and one support staff. I would suggest saying up to one support staff, just to recognize that we're not immediately hopping to a full-time FTE. I think the phrase hired through the county is sort of ambiguous enough that it doesn't say a new hire.
no.
It's just, but it's clear that it's a county hire.
Or maybe staffed through the county? Who's hired? Staffed by the county?
The reason that language is in there is that in a few of our counties, we do have support staff that are hired through Colorado State University. And those counties that have done that have to pay an additional premium for administrative costs. And so
Gotcha. Okay.
for most of our counties in the state, this is a county hired employee. For example, my support staff in Chaffey County is a Chaffey County employee, and so I actually do her performance appraisal on an annual basis and oversee her. So I live in two different worlds.
Okay.
Where I have to know different personnel notes and that type of thing. So
Yeah. So I mean, I'm comfortable with just saying up to and leaving.
Yeah.
Your county. And then the other change, I think, at the end of 3A, it says based on funding availability. And to me, it's in some ways it's more the workload than, I mean, funding is of course important. So I was just going to say at the end of 3A, So it would run on based on funding availability and mutually agreed workload.
Okay.
Okay.
Just to capture that, sense that, you know, it's a partnership and we'll just provide the support that's needed.
Okay.
So mutually agreed workload.
Okay.
I like that because one of the other things that I'm considering is that we have AmeriCorps STEM program through the 4-H state office. And potentially we could look at getting one of those folks here in Lake County to help with some out of school programming, particularly in the early summertime. And so basically that person just needs a place to be able to work out of. I think this year they have waived the administrative fees for that. So that may be a workload that's in addition to this.
So then the sort of following on from the discussion we just had about this person being split between supporting CSU and maybe some other county tasks, I think we need to look at section 1I on supervision of staff. It's on page 2, I think. Because right now it says that management and supervision will be by the extension director. I think we just need to find some way to say that the management and supervision of the tasks under this MOU.
So this is this in reference to the support staff?
Yeah, it is. So it's
It's not-
management and also it should be, I think it should be supervision, not supervisor. So management and supervision of Lake County hired support staff will be through the extension director and or delegate. I think it should, you know, it's management and supervision of tasks under this MOU.
Yeah, because if it's a part-time person,
Yeah.
then the management of this should only go so far as the CSU agreement.
Those tasks or under this
Well-
MOU.
Yeah,
Management and supervision of Lake County hired support staff will continue to be through the extension director and delegate.
I think 4 tasks performed under
Tasks.
this MOU.
Under this MOU. Yeah. And I had a question, but I about, how do we, did I miss it somewhere in here? How then is our relation, is that you as the supervisor? Is that somebody else for this?
For right now, it would be me. The idea is that we would be hiring a county extension director for Lake County, and it'll be in that person's
Okay,
job description to supervise.
okay.
So
And then as far as the county's role in then like communicating with that supervisor on measurables and expectations, that would be through the advisory committee? One of us sitting on the advisory committee, or do we just, I mean,
So the advisory
These seem
committee is an advisory committee. They do not have decision-making
okay,
responsibilities.
Okay.
You know, it's, I'm trying to think, in 22 years, I've never had an issue with.
I was gonna say, this is like
supervising.
kind of an intuitive thing,
Yeah.
but sometimes we
Yep,
just need to
yep.
have those expectations put in writing.
We all know
to-
what
to keep
assumptions do,
Yep,
yes.
to keep the lines of
Um,
communication going.
I think the idea behind 1I is that in some of our other counties, in Chaffey County, I enjoy a direct report to the county commissioners.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be great.
In some of our Front Range counties, they are a direct report into another department head,
Mhm.
and that department head then has direct reports into the commissioners.
Mhm.
So what they were trying to get around on this is that that department head does not get to dictate on a day-to-day basis what that support staff does.
Mhm.
So that's the logic behind that 1I. If
No, that makes sense. I just,
logic might be in air quotes. but,
yeah.
Um,
It makes sense. I just want to be clear too, that that's the expectation of a direct continued conversation and updates between the board
Mhm.
and CSU on as far as, managing and decision-making.
Another thing on this MOU is that it's supposed to be looked at once a year. And revised, or officially looked at once every 2 years. And so if there's ever an issue with something, we just jump on the horn.
Yeah, great. Well, and I one last question, and I'm sorry, we're trying to maybe have a hard stop at 2:30, but the formula funding that now is available to Lake County, is there any risk of that being eliminated once we're in this engagement? And again, as you just said, we revisit this partnership every year. But our conversation was that minimal increase, and this I see as a similar engagement with COG and whatnot, and it's a very a small increase and a small contribution to a broader range of resources. But do you think that
I
formula
don't
funding?
anticipate this formula funding going away.
Okay,
It's, why my predecessor was never in front of your board before now, I don't understand. We have had, all the way from the director of extension up through the president of the university has turned over in the last 2.5 years. And so it may be just that this timing is appropriate right now. But I did make sure that, it's a gentleman's agreement, but I did go to my director and say, what do I have to offer? He said, what do you want? And I said, I want a formula agent up in Lake County. And he said, yes. So that was a conversation we had back in February. So.
yeah.
I could also add to that point. I was at the CCI regional meeting, and so
I had
your
2 days notice. And I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
make it, so.
well, but CSU is well represented, and something I took away from that presentation by the CSU extension was that there's been a lot of turnover, and I think there's a bit of a re-examination, reinvigoration of the extension, and as CSU has grown in a lot of areas on its campuses, sort of coming back to the fact that it's a land grant university and that it serves the state.
Yeah.
And I took away from that presentation that there was a sort of genuine effort going on at
I
CSU
believe there is.
to make sure the extension services is working.
Yeah.
I do know there's a desire from both our Vice President for Engagement, Blake Naughton, and the Assistant Vice President, Lindsay Shirley, that they want to come to every county commissioner meeting in the state in the next 4 to 5 months.
Okay.
To listen to your needs so
Yeah.
I don't know yet when that's going to happen, but the regional directors have offered them a saying this is crazy that you're going to try to make all 64 counties in 5 months, and they've said no, we're gonna get this done, and we went okay, let's get it done. So
Well, if I could offer too, I think it's real exciting. There are some things that we've taken advantage of through the program that, FLTI, the Family Leadership Training Institute, through BAG. That's, I think, a huge success. If we could get that happening more often in the community, that would be fantastic. We've been working with CFRI on the wildfire mitigation. I mean, that's kind of a resource that gets opened up, I think. So I'm most interested in, I have a short list or a long list here, I guess, FLTI, 4-H, enhancement and support, the C4 Gardens support specifically in sustainability and revenue generating, wildfire efforts and mitigation, water testing.
Like I said, I'm the ESF 11 lead in Chaffey County.
Yep.
I
Emergency
anticipate
management.
doing that, here. So,
Yeah, the wells and the operable units as they relate to Cal Gulch and our impacts from mining, and also the cottage home training.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that really intrigues me in diversifying and offering opportunity for improved family economics
Mhm.
and with our community members. So, yeah.
So we look
Alright.
forward to 3 extension agents.
No, high expectations.
So this is why we need that advisory committee, so we can start putting pins on the wall.
So that'll be our next step.
Yes.
huh?
Okay. Cool.
Alright. Well, I'm happy to entertain a motion, provided mutual agreement on the language that I've tracked in our conversation here.
And legal review.
Yeah, and legal review.
So do you want me to? take a stab at
Yes,
that?
please.
Sure. So I will make a motion that we approve engagement with the CSU Extension Program through this memorandum of understanding with the changes that we've discussed today and legal review.
Second.
Perfect. Any further discussion? Kurt, I'll send you these couple track changes in 3A and 1I, and I think with that, then,
And do you want to send it to Chris as well?
yes,
It's
I
like,
will,
will you
I'll send it to
all of us.
send
and
it to
Chris?
Kurt, all of us, and Chris, and we can get your feedback on whether or not that seems legit, and finalize from there.
I just for discussion, I had one other note on the back
Mm.
page, on the signature pages, there are the 3 commissioners, and then there's a county officer. And I wonder if that was the clerk or who that is.
It's, of course, county commissioners are the ones that legally can jump into this. Often the county officer is a county manager.
Okay.
So I didn't know, I wrote this back in July.
Yeah.
So we didn't have a county manager at that point. So,
We'll
Would
put
you-
in manager.
okay.
Does that work?
that's fine.
All right. Okay, so we've got those 3 changes then, or 3 areas with some
Yeah.
track changes that I've covered here.
It's still, I think we're still 3 weeks out from them starting, so is that okay timing wise?
It's been 45 years.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, excellent.
I guess the other question I would have is I can't make any promises, but if I can get Lindsay or Blake to come here, do you want to have a MOU signing party?
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
that's
know
cool.
if your press
Yeah.
would want to do that. I don't know if it has to be at a commissioners meeting. If you affirm it today, then I don't know if you have to sign it in a commissioners meeting or not.
No, we'd based on the motion, yeah, we approve and authorize signatures on our, the conversation continue in legal then, so we could just sign and I don't know.
And then we could,
Yeah.
we could have another meeting with them to like kick off the engagement.
Because I have a feeling that our conversation may be longer than 10,
Yeah.
15 minutes,
Yeah,
so maybe better if we had a work session on.
Just with them.
Did that.
Yeah,
that'd
we
be
can
great.
definitely include you on the list for work session, agenda items. Great. All right. Okay, if there's no further discussion then, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Great. All right. Thank you for making the trip, Kurt.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
I appreciate phone calls, but I like seeing people in person. so,
Definitely.
all right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Excellent.
You
You
too.
too. All right. And last items of business, we have reports, minutes, bills, and payroll. We have no minutes for you at the moment, but I will entertain a motion for the approval of the Veteran Service Officer report for September 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 And I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the Public Trustees report for third quarter 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 And entertain a motion for approval of bills and payroll for pay period ending October 8th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. And I want to mention the food drive that's continuing through November 1st. Be sure to drop off and contribute there for your neighbors, as well as, see, I had something else. Oh, our rec master planning, our first big meeting with community outreach and engagement will be the November 9th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the 6th Street Gym. So food drive and rec master planning upcoming.
Yay,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
All right, very good. If there's nothing else, we can adjourn at 2:27. Have a good rest of your day.